But essentially, did you know that you can get pregnant again from 3 weeks post-birth? Like, my vagina had just like sealed up. It was just like, no, 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 absolutely not. Nothing is coming in here. Good luck to you. Thank you. Goodbye. Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Hormone Diaries, the first one of 2023. Happy New Year. I hope that you're all doing well and you had a lovely break. Welcome back, welcome back. Get yourselves cozy, get a cup of tea. This is going to be an intimate one. So for a while, I felt like I couldn't make this video. I didn't feel ready to make this video, mainly because me and my partner, since having our baby, haven't been having sex. And by sex in this instance, I mean penis in vagina sex, intercourse. And so there was a part of me being beaten down by the heteronormative sex script that I couldn't make a video about sex post-birth because I wasn't having sex. However, I realised that I still have so much to say and share about postpartum sex and my sex life and relationship since having a baby because it's honestly amazing. I know that a lot of people really struggle with sex and intimacy postpartum and after birth. Like, it is just such a huge change and affects so many different parts of you and your body and your relationship. But for me personally and for my partner, we've found that we've been great. And so I kind of wanted to share this side of it as well, because I feel like we hear loads of stories about how having a baby ruined your sex life or having a baby like ruined your relationship and like all of these kinds of things. And then I just want to share my experience because it's different to that and it kind of contrasts with that narrative and offers up a different way that things can be. And then I also just wanted to share some of the things that I've learned and like why it's been so good and like how and that kind of stuff in terms of like actually what has worked for us, and then maybe that could help some other people. And then also I just want to share because that's my whole deal. So yes, we are having a lot less PIV sex than we were from pre-baby, but that is not the measure of success or satisfaction when it comes to your sex life and your relationship. So let's rewind, go back to the beginning of birth and everything, and I'm just going to take you through my experience in terms of sex, intimacy, and contraception post-birth. Starting with contraception. And that's because obviously the Hormone Diaries started its birth. The birth of this series was me coming off the pill after being on the pill for 7 years. And so I had to touch on contraception because that was how this whole series started. But essentially, did you know that you can get pregnant again from 3 weeks post-birth? No, thank you. No, thank you. One of the midwives said this to me when I was in hospital on the postpartum ward, and I was like, absolutely not. And actually, one of the things that they do whilst you're on that ward is they do talk to you about contraception before you go home in terms of like what method are you going to be using? What do you want to be using? Do you want us to prescribe you a pill now? And I was like, yes, please. So the pill that I used to be on was Cerazette, which is a progesterone only pill, and they didn't have that brand, but I think they sent me home with like Sorel or whatever. And then when I actually came to getting a prescription again, after I'd run out of the stuff they gave me, my GP also didn't have that brand. So whatever, now I'm on just like the generic one, which I think the name of it is like Desogestrel is the name of the actual like synthetic progesterone hormone. This is not my area of expertise, but that is the pill that I'm on. It's progesterone only and you take it every single day, no breaks. I think I started taking it at about 4 weeks postpartum. The main reason I did this was, one, do not want to get pregnant again anytime soon. No, thank you. I was like, I don't even want to be worrying about that. Not even planning on having sex, but I just do not want this to like even be an option. So like if we were to have sex, I don't have to like worry about that. And then the other reason was previously when I have been on progesterone only contraception, whether that be the pill or also the Mirena coil I had for a while, my periods have stopped and I just can't be bothered having periods. Some people really love having their period or are neutral towards their period. My period has never even really been that bad. I just can't be bothered. I do not need another thing to think about. And yes, maybe taking a pill every day is another thing to think about, but less so for me because it's just like a daily habit. And the reason I went for the pill again instead of opting to get the Mirena coil again was because even though I don't want to get pregnant again anytime soon, I do want to get pregnant again soon-ish. Who knows? But essentially the Mirena coil lasts, I think, 5 years. And yes, you can get it taken out before that. But I just thought, do you know what? I don't want to put myself through getting a coil inserted and then like taken out again in a really short period of time. Whereas with the pill, I can just stop it anytime I want as soon as I'm ready to start trying again for potential future child. So that is where we're at with contraception. I know that some of you spotted that I was like taking a pill in one of the vlogs that I did last year, and someone was like, oh, please talk about that. Like, why did you choose the pill? So I hope that this has answered some of those questions that you had. Next, let's turn to those first few weeks postpartum. So this is after getting home with Rowan from the hospital and yeah, Dan being on paternity leave. And the three of us just, I have no words, honestly. Like, what was that time? I don't remember it. I think I've just like blanked out most of it. But the one thing I do remember is that I was so horny. Like, it must have something to do with the hormonal release, like post-birth. Like, you've gone from having a pregnant body and a pregnant balance of hormones to then like it just crashing and you having like a new set of postpartum hormones. But holy fuck, I just had the horn. And it was interesting and tricky to navigate because I was also recovering from surgery and also had a newborn baby to look after. I think everything in that period just felt so intense. So the horniness was really intense, orgasms were intense, our relationship felt more intense. I think because like Rowan was here, like the baby that had been inside me like all this time like was here, it was like, oh my God, you and me, we did this together. And it just like was super intense. There was just more desire, more sexual attraction. Like there was just like this pull that I felt. And I think Dan felt part of it too, but maybe less on a hormonal side and more just like on a like situation side. But of course we were limited physically because I was recovering from a C-section, but use your imagination, there's plenty of things that you can do. And it was very similar to that kind of like intensity after I had my colon removed and the surgeries after that, like going through a really like dramatic change together, going through something really big together and having to be apart for some of that as well, and then coming together. I don't know, for lack of a better word, I just keep saying it was intense. But eventually that intensity and I think that just like initial rush of hormones, they did die down. But I have spoken to some other of my new mum friends about it, and a lot of them experienced the same thing of just like about 3 weeks of being incredibly horny and then it just kind of disappearing. So I'd be curious to know in the comments if any of you also are like, yes, that happened to me too, because it was weird and completely unexpected. Like being incredibly horny right after birth was not something that I was prepared for or expecting to happen. But then that leads us to the first sex. And again, I'm being super heteronormative scripty here because obviously like we were having different kinds of sex before this, but this is like the first like PIV attempt. And this was at around 5 weeks postpartum. And essentially, we both, I think, went into this experience feeling really ready, but also having very low expectations for like what was going to happen. But essentially, I was incredibly tight. We had to use a lot of lube. We were very limited physically in what we could do because my vagina was just like, oh, hell no. However, it didn't feel like this big failure because we were kind of just like, this is normal. Like, this is the first time that we're trying to do this since this huge thing happened to my body. And so we didn't really think anything of it. We were just like, yeah, cool. That's just some information for us. Okay, good to know. Good to know that that's what Hannah's body's doing right now. But it continued. And so that leads us on to penetration problems. So we tried and failed in scare quotes because it's not really failing, a few more times. And basically it hurt, felt very physically impossible. I've never had like vaginismus or anything like that before, but it's kind of what I imagine it to be like. It just felt impossible to get in or do anything. Like my vagina had just like sealed up. It was just like, no, 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 absolutely not. Nothing is coming in here. Good luck to you. Thank you. Goodbye. Interestingly, with fingers, it was fine. Like my vagina could handle some fingers, but then also it couldn't handle any sex toys like being inserted, which caused some issues because actually last year we planned to do this whole video of me reviewing some sex toys from Poundland because, oh my God, Poundland has sex toys. And so I bought all of these sex toys and then I was trying them, but I literally couldn't get it in a way that felt good enough to be able to give like a honest, genuine review. And so that video got canned, but you know, maybe one day. I still have all the toys. And so whilst I wasn't really feeling it affect our relationship and I didn't really feel like we were failing, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, interesting. Okay, this is still happening. All right. And yes, it was frustrating in the moment because like mentally and emotionally, I was feeling really ready to have penetrative sex, but my vagina had other plans. And so I thought, hey, do you know what? Whilst this doesn't feel urgent or crucial right now, I do eventually one day want to have penetrative sex back on our sex menu. One, because I enjoy it, but also two, because that is how I would like to get pregnant again in the future. And so I went to see a pelvic floor physiotherapist. Now, that is where this story ends, because I'm going to do a whole other video about my journey with my tight vagina. So I'm seeing a pelvic floor physiotherapist. I've also seen a sexological body worker. And so that whole journey, all of that is going to be in another episode of the Hormone Diaries. And in this one, I'm just going to continue talking about just the other kinds of sex and intimacy and relationship and all of that. Because whilst, yes, we're not able to have penetrative sex right now, there's a lot of other good stuff going on. So sex after having a baby. If you want to know what other options are out there in terms of sex that are not penetration, then I have a whole video called What is Sex? And also there are plenty of lists online of like all different sex acts and things that you can get up to in the bedroom. The opportunities are endless. Go at it. Enjoy. For lots of different relationships, penis and vagina sex isn't even an option because of the body parts of the people in that relationship. And then also for people who do have those body parts, it might also just like not be something that you're interested in or temporarily off the sex menu like it is in my case. There are lots of other sexy things that you can do. But in terms of the practicalities of sex after having a baby, this has been a tricky one. So I know that some people like feel funny about having sex in the same room as their baby, as children. And that is not something that I've ever felt funny about. I'm fully aware that like hundreds, thousands of years of humankind, people have been living and sleeping and having sex in the same rooms as like sleeping infants, and that has just been a very normal part of like the human experience. It's only recently and in like more Western society that we have like babies in separate rooms anyway. So mentally, that was never really a block for me. And Rowan was always in like one of those like next to me cribs. So he was like in a different space and then we had the bed to ourselves. And sometimes it's just like really funny. Like it's not about completely ignoring them and like pretending they're not there because they make noises, they do things, they might roll over, they might interrupt you, and actually just kind of finding that funny and just kind of like doing a slight pause and just being like, they all right? Okay, yeah, they're fine. Right, let's continue. I understand that that might be like a bit of a mental block for people, but it never really was for us until recently. So that was kind of like more in the early days, but now we are basically exclusively bed sharing. And the situation is that Rowan has taken up most of the bed, and then I'm in the bed with him because I feed him at night, and then Dan has his own little makeshift bed on the floor. So there's definitely an element of like, oh, we're not sharing a bed anymore. So there's like a reduced intimacy there because, you know, I love me some nighttime cuddles. Like there's something really lovely about like sleeping next to your partner at night and like waking up to them in the morning. So there's that element of intimacy that we've lost, but the practicality of it is just so much more rewarding that I don't mind. But now that Rowan is actually physically in the same bed as us, now I do have a mental block about it. Even though like previously he'd be like attached to the bed, but in his own separate space, fine. But now, like, I think since bed sharing, actually, we haven't really had a chance to do anything, really. So whereas previously, yeah, we're not having PIV sex, but we're able to, like, be sexual in other ways, now it's just, like, nada. So in terms of opportunities now, it tends to only really be when Rowan is in the hands of other people are looking after him, and so then we're able to have a little bit of Hannah and Dan time. And then, of course, we're just tired, especially me. I'm exhausted. I go to bed at about 9:30 now, and I think Dan usually comes to bed maybe around 11:30. So we're not going to bed at the same time. We're also not waking up at the same time. We're not sleeping in the same bed together. When we are both awake together at the same time, Rowan is usually awake as well and like hanging out with us, and you know, like we're cooking dinner and there's stuff to do. Interestingly, I would say that we had way more opportunities for like being sexually intimate with each other in the first 3 or 4 months than we do now since bed sharing. But I love bed sharing and it's worth it. With that all being said, why my sex life is still great. Is this just a whole video of me boasting? I truly want to share like that it can still be good. This is just obviously my experience. A few months ago, we actually did a video that was about just kind of more broadly sex and intimacy after birth. And in that video, we shared loads of your guys' experiences with that you submitted. So that video has like a huge diverse range of all of the different experiences of like postpartum sex and intimacy and confidence and like all of those things. Obviously, this is just my experience. So if you want like to hear other people's voices as well, definitely check out that video. But these are some of the things that have helped us and I think have contributed to why I feel like my sex life and our relationship is still really great. And the first thing is acceptance and communication around the fact that it is just a phase. Pretty much everything is a phase, but it's really important to acknowledge that, like actually communicate that with each other. Just say, hey, like, yeah, we're not really having sex right now, but this isn't going to be forever and that's fine. Like this is what's working for us right now. And also accepting it, like just really just being like, this is how it is. I often feel like a lot of the struggles that we have and the frustrations that we have are not because of the situation itself, but because of trying to like fight it rather than just being like, this is how it is. I'm just going to accept it and things will change because everything is a phase. One of the other things that has really helped us is just a constant reassurance of sexual attraction and desire. So just because we aren't actually having much sex doesn't mean we don't want to, and doesn't mean that we have stopped being attracted to the other person. And this kind of reassurance doesn't have to be like really direct and being like, just so you know, I'm still sexually attracted to you and I'm still horny. Like it doesn't have to be like really direct and specific like that. It can very much be a show, don't tell situation as long as, you know, you understand each other's languages and body language and cues and things. Every couple in terms of how they communicate with each other is really different. Mine and Dan's style is very jokey and very humorous. So just like Dan constantly making jokes about how Rowan gets access to my boobs and he doesn't, and you know, joking about that, and that's essentially him saying to me that, you know, he's still attracted to me and all of that kind of stuff. We just have a lot of fun with it. Sometimes it's in the tone of how we talk to each other, just like, you know, the odd bum slap here and little grope there and like things like that. And this would be a good time to also talk about love languages, because there's a way to kind of like incorporate love languages, but also into kind of like not just expressing love, but expressing sexual desire and sexual attraction and how the other person interprets that. So do you need someone to say to you, I find you really sexually attractive? Or would you prefer them to make a funny joke about how your tits look great? Or would you prefer them to like give you a little grope and a smack on the bottom? That kind of thing. Like, what is your preference in terms of like receiving that kind of messaging around sexual attraction and desire? So that could also be something for you to talk about. Dan and I just like fully go down the jokes route, because then we just have a fun time, as well as telling each other that we find each other sexy. This next one I think is the main reason why I feel so good and relaxed about our sex life right now. And that is because there is no pressure. There is no pressure coming from me. There's no pressure coming from Dan. There is no pressure coming from our situation or like what I feel like we should be doing and like culture and society and all of that. There is just like no pressure from all of the angles that you could potentially be getting pressure from for us to be having sex. And the reason that I really feel that is because it is in contrast to like other stages of our relationship. So at the beginning, like the pre-trying to conceive phase, like I definitely like have a higher sex drive than Dan, and so there was sometimes a lot of frustration there of like when we should be having sex. I'd also definitely internalized a lot of messaging around like how often you should be having sex to have a satisfying sex life and a good relationship, and so there was a lot to kind of like work through there. Then we were trying to conceive, and so there was a huge amount of pressure on sex because it like suddenly meant something else, and we were trying for ages before I got pregnant with Rowan. And then during pregnancy, there was also this kind of like niggly feeling of like, well, you should be having loads of sex now because as soon as this baby comes, then you're not going to be able to have any sex anymore. So throughout our entire relationship, there have always been these little voices, or based on circumstance, reasons why there was pressure on us to be having sex. And like now, that's all gone. That is all gone, which means that when we do get to be sexually intimate with each other, we're just like so there, and it's like because we really want to and not because we feel like we have to or that there is any kind of pressure to. Like we are both just like, hey, I'm fully in and this is what I want to be doing. And then of course, another thing that has helped is solo sex. Yes, just because we're not having sex with each other and just because we're in a relationship doesn't mean the solo sex has stopped. Like masturbation is definitely still a thing. And that's, for me, has just been a really useful tool sometimes to like relieve some sexual energy, but also just to kind of like relax and unwind. But again, with the bed sharing thing, there was definitely a lot more masturbation in those early days and not so much anymore because like Rowan is like right next to me. Like the only chance I would really get to have any solo sex is if Rowan is having like a difficult time settling. Sometimes Dan will let him sleep on his lap whilst he's just like chilling out in the office, like playing video games or something. And then I go to bed early, and so I'm alone in the bedroom. And that is my opportunity. That is when I swoop. Although I do have to kind of like mentally decide like, do I masturbate or do I go to sleep? But oftentimes it's masturbate and then sleep. Also, we've been thinking about making a whole video about masturbation in relationships because it still seems to be like a really taboo thing, and like also talking around like the social attitudes towards it, but then also like practically like how and when do you do it and then how do you talk about it. If that is a video that you'd be interested in seeing, like do let me know in the comments. And then finally, another reason why I think that my sex life is so great what a time, is something that I've talked about loads before on this channel, and that is sexual currency. And that is essentially all of the ways that you relate to each other in a sexual way that aren't actually having sex. So it's flirting, it's kissing, it's touching each other, it's talking about sex as sexual currency, like all of these things that aren't genital related, basically. And I think that Dan and I have really good sexual currency, and also sexual currency was a concept that when I learned about it, I introduced it to Dan, and then it's really useful for us to both have this like shared language and shared understanding so that we both are aware that when we do kiss each other but it doesn't lead to anything, or when we do have a little joke and a flirt together, we both like make an effort more to do those things because we know about the positive impact that it has. So if you haven't already looked into sexual currency or like just talked about it with a partner, because I feel like one of the things that holds a lot of people back is that every kiss turns into sex, or there is a apprehension that, oh my God, if they're kissing me like this, that means that they want sex, or the other person goes, ooh, they're kissing me like this, that means we're gonna have sex. And actually, sometimes it's really about like removing that expectation at all and allowing you to have moments of sexual currency where there is no pressure and no expectation that it is going to lead to sex. Like just having those moments of connection for their own sake. and not because it's going to like escalate or lead anywhere. So I also wanted to talk about relationship intimacy outside of the sexual, because baby, romance isn't dead, let me tell you. I do feel like since we had a baby, the romance in a relationship is like heightened. And I don't know whether that's because like, you know, the narratives and the stories that we're told is like, you know, couple get married, couple have a baby, da da da, isn't that romantic? And so, you know, because we're fulfilling the heteronormative brief, we're like tick, 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 then I'm like, oh, isn't our life and relationship so romantic? But it does feel like it's more than that. Like, we really do make an effort to connect with each other. We've even been able to like have a few date nights together, which we really cherish. There's a lot of saying I love yous, which we already did before, but it just feels really important to like remember that. Like, you know, if you're having like a really tricky day, even just like saying I love you out loud or hearing I love you, it's just like, okay, reset, like this is good. And then another thing that I felt is like really important for us at least is the kissing each other, hello and goodbye, like when we go apart and like come back together. Also like good night and good morning as well. Because our lives are so hectic and busy and kind of like revolve around this baby, it is really easy for us just to be passing ships and for us just to be like moving around each other, not really acknowledging each other. Like Dan goes off to work, I go off to bed before him, da da da. But we really, really make sure that every time we are moving apart, it's like kiss, I love you, good night, good day, good morning, whatever it is. And then when we come back together, it's like, oh, hello. Because we've often found, sometimes like Dan gets home from work and is so excited to see Rowan and Rowan's so excited to see him. They have their whole moment. They're like, you know, getting all the attention from each other. And then I'm just there like, what about me? And so it's really important for then me and Dan to also have a like, hello, kiss, welcome home, how was your day? Like that whole thing as well. And it sounds so boring and mundane, but it's those like small little daily interactions that we get that I think really help. Like if we forget to like kiss goodnight or goodbye or whatever, or good morning, like it gets to the afternoon on a weekend and I'm like, we haven't kissed yet today, like what's that about? And then we're like, oh, hello, good morning, good afternoon, or whatever. And on that, I think another really thing that's helped with that intimacy is just the pausing and acknowledging each other, because things can get really hectic, things can get really busy. You feel like you don't have a moment to breathe. Sometimes even if something feels really urgent, like Rowan is crying and dinner is ready or whatever, sometimes just like stopping, looking at each other, being like, are you okay? Are you okay? I love you. Okay, great. Let's go. Let's do this. That I think also really helps. Just acknowledging that the other person is there, like, hello, you, yes, you, we are here together in this moment. Okay, so there we have it. I really hope that this video hasn't come across as me just being like, my relationship is great, like my sex life is great and all of this. What I really want to do is just kind of like show things that have worked for us and also like that it can be fine, just because I feel like there are just so many scary narratives out there, like having kids is gonna ruin your sex life. And I'm like, no, it doesn't have to. It's gonna change your sex life and change your relationship for sure, 100%, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And everything is a phase. If you have kids and you're in a relationship and you are happy to share, I would love to hear your experiences in the comments. Are they similar to mine or are they completely different? Did any of the things that I talked about in this video resonate with you? Are they things that you've tried as well? I hope that you are doing well. If you are interested in hearing a bit more behind the scenes about what to expect on this channel in this new year of 2023, then do make sure to subscribe to my More Hannah YouTube channel, because on Thursday, I'm going to be releasing my 2023 goals video, and there is a lot of information in there about my priorities and intentions for videos on this channel. Some things are going to be changing up around here a little bit, so do go and check that out. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to my patrons who make videos like this and the sex and relationships work that I do possible. If you would like to join our lovely community of sex nerds and get to know some other people in this community and also get access to a bunch of bonus content and different perks like live streams and things, then do check out the Patreon link in the description. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.